My name's Charles Henry. I live in Oklahoma City. It's mid-July 2016, and I turned 53 years old a few days ago. The reason I mention all of that is I don't want there to be anything mysterious or cryptic about myself or what I'm about to share with you. For over 10 years now, I've been experiencing this phenomenon known as Morgellons, and without any medical help, I've basically been on my own to figure it out. Just like everyone else that's been experiencing this. To get right to the point, because the answer, like any good answer, is short and sweet. Morgellons, as the medical community has always claimed, does not indeed exist. It is actually a strain of a well-known fungal infection known as lymphatic sporotrichosis. I can say that authoritatively because I just proved to myself that is indeed what it is by following the regimen, the well-known medical regimen of using potassium iodide to eradicate lymphatic sporotrichosis, and it worked. I'm still healing, but there's no more fungal activity. I've been studying this stuff long enough in my own body to know, and I can say to you that indeed that is exactly what this is. That said, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about the experience so that other people that may have been experiencing this as long as I have will know that I am telling the truth. I was in Western Washington State in 2002, which we would later find out was one of the hotbeds for an outbreak of this condition. Western Washington, Southern California, and the Texas and Florida Gulf Coast all had an outbreak of this condition almost spontaneously in 2002, and all of us experienced the same thing on going to our doctor. In 2003, early 2003, I returned to Oklahoma City and I began having this outbreak in my skin, fibers and spores breaking through my skin. So naturally I made an appointment to see a general practitioner, and his treatment of me was bizarre to me at the time. He looked, saw that I had holes in my skin, and I claimed things were coming out of it, and he asked me, "Have you been out of the country recently?" And, well, no, I had not. And that was about the extent of our interview, and he basically got up to walk away and said to me, "I can't help you. This is not a medical condition." And I had no idea at the time what that meant. I know now that it was a diagnosis of DOP, delusions of parasitosis. I asked him to recommend a dermatologist, and he agreed to that. And a few days later I went to see a dermatologist. Now this is still in 2003, that's been a long time ago. And the treatment by the dermatologist was kinder, but it was no better. She shot steroids into the lesions and was very nice to me, very poo-pooing to me actually in hindsight, because she thought she was dealing with a mental patient. She gave me a prescription, and I was thrilled. I was, oh, thank goodness, you know, there's some help here. And I took the medication, and wow, it knocked me out. I was like, no way am I taking any more of that. I put it on a shelf. And years later, when I met my now wife, she said, "Oh my God, you take this?" And I said, "Oh no, that's what that dermatologist gave me for this skin condition I have," because I still didn't know what it was, and the skin condition nor the medication. And it was a very, very serious psychiatric drug. She was concerned that she'd married a nut until I explained to her, well, no, that's what they gave me for this condition. And in these years, my wife has actually cared for me. I wouldn't have made it without her. She's tried a lot of homeopathic treatments. That's basically, I've been on my deathbed for years now, and well, she's cared for me, like I said, and we've tried everything under the sun. Colloidal silver, diatomaceous earth, all the stuff. And you know, all of anything that you do to this condition to treat it topically or internally, it'll work a little bit for a little while, then it comes back with a vengeance. And that's always been a real mystery to me about this. And now initially in 2003, 2004, when this thing was really starting to knock me down, I treated it topically with a fungicide, because immediately it occurred to me, well, there's spores and there's fibers. Well, naturally that's going to be fungus. But I could not for the life of me find anything online that related to a whole body fungal infection. And just 4 months ago, one of my nieces, who's aware of my condition, because what I've done basically is I've been studying this stuff. I've been biopsying it for years and years, and I know the mechanical breakdown of what these lesions look like, and I could draw the thing for you. I can tell you that they produce probably 2 or 3 different types of fungal spore, and that there's half a dozen kind of fibers. They have different jobs. There's tunnelers, there's for expanding the lesion, there's fibers that act like springs to create open space to allow the lesion to grow, and then there's reproductive fibers. I mean, I'm very well versed in how this thing works. But anyway, I wrote publicly about my experiences with this, semi-publicly, where my family could at least see it, so that they would know what I went through, so that if it ever came out what this thing was, that at least they would know I wasn't crazy. And one of my nieces had pretty well kept up with that, and she contacted me 4 months ago, and she said, I think that what you've been writing about, it sounds very much like this. And she sent me a link to a medical description of sporotrichosis. And I said, oh my God, I think you're right. And I began taking small doses of potassium iodide, and I felt better immediately. And then I jumped in whole hog, and I bought the materials to create a saturated solution of potassium iodide so that I could follow the legitimate regimen. And at 6 weeks the fungus basically died, and then ideally I would have gone 10 weeks, but I couldn't make it. 8 weeks was all I could take. It was a rough thing. I'm a tough guy. I've been through a lot in this life, but I could not take another day of taking that potassium iodide. Well, anyway, that's the story in a nutshell. And I'm not a doctor. I think I've made that very clear here, and I'm not giving anyone medical advice, and I surely would not recommend to anyone that you follow the potassium iodide regimen unless, if you're just out of options like I was. I mean, I've been dealing with this so long that it was without proper treatment, that it was chronic, and I was convinced 4 months ago, I was convinced that I was dying soon. And anyway, I'm not dying now. I'm actually just fine. I'm getting stronger by the day. The lesions are healing up. There's no more fungal activity. I am having to remove all fibers and spores so that the lesions can heal up. My real message, though, is to the medical community. As tempting as it is to admonish you for your treatment of people that have experienced what I have, and the apparent unification against us to create this idea that we had somehow all met on the internet and gone crazy together, what I encourage you is to please examine people who are coming in with this condition. I did a search just a little while ago and found that people are still new. Patients are being created to this stuff, and you must examine them and culture the spores and the lesions so that you can give them proper medical treatment. Like I said, the potassium iodide regimen, it's been around for 150 years. This is a known condition, and the potassium iodide is so difficult to make it through. Please, to the medical community, help these people. Just simply culture the spores and see what the proper pharmaceutical is to treat these folks. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. I think you should be convinced that I have shared your experience, and you know, I don't really have anything to add. Just thanks for watching, and I wish you well, and do something. And please, doctors, help people.